Right, thought we'd just do a little breakdown here. I've got the 5 founders rump, okay? Now, this particular piece is from the right-hand side of the animal. I can tell that because, aside from seeing a few of these in my time, I can tell that because I know that this here is the rump cap. Now, the rump cap is a continuation of the outside flat, part of the silver side. Silver side runs up the outside of the leg, and the other thing that happens is just on the side here, it's been taken off on this piece, but this is where the tri-tip would be. Now the tri-tip would run down the top of the knuckle or the thigh of, in this case, the right leg. Interestingly enough, as I said, this piece is the rump cap and that's connected to the outside flat. Now, traditionally the outside flat is used for corned beef and those sorts of things. The first big chunk of the outside flat that's connected to this is actually just as tender as this one. So if you ever do get a whole outside flat, you can cut off the first, say, quarter, maybe a little bit less than a quarter. It will be on an angle just because of the nature of the shape of the muscle. But that first piece is, back in the day, it used to be called an H-bone. And it was the prize piece of the corned silver side or the corned outside flat. So what we'll do, to take this off, you can see that there is a natural seam there. So what I can do is, just using my fingers to start with, I can actually peel pretty much all of that away, just like that. Once I get to that end where I can see the muscle has stopped, I can cut that piece off. It's a simple matter of trimming away some of that hard fat, squaring that piece off there where there's a large piece of fat. All that fat I'll keep and use for rendering, for suet and those sorts of things. There's a large piece of silver skin there, which I'll gently tease away. This is never going to render down, as we know, during cooking, so there's absolutely no value in leaving it on. Quite the opposite, you're lessening the value by leaving it on. So that's an easy removal to get rid of that. There's really nothing else on the underside that needs doing. Then you're left with your rump cap. Now, the age-old question, which way do you cut a rump cap if you're not going to cook it whole? If you can see there, the fibres are running this way. Okay, so if we follow the usual course of action, we'd be cutting that way. But as you can see, because of the irregular shape of it, it doesn't matter which way you cut it, whether it's this way or that way, you're not really going across the grain as you're meant to be doing it. I've always found, if I was cutting steaks, if I look at that as a triangle, I will always cut it this way. I think we get the best results out of it that way in terms of tenderness, but I also think we get the best yield. But in saying that, I'm leaving that piece whole. I'll cook that whole a bit later. We'll move on to the next piece. This piece here is called the rosbif. In some countries they'll call it a rump heart, but in Australia it's a rosbif. By looking down the top of it there, you can see this natural seam here. There's a thick nerve. You can just see the beginning of that thick nerve just there. What I like to do is remove that piece right on the nerve. Sometimes it's easier to find where that nerve is from the underside. Just by using the tip of the knife, we can isolate exactly where it is. Like that. Once you've isolated where it is, you can continue until you get to the end of that nerve and then just cut through. Now, in some places they'll call this a petite rump. I believe that in the States they call it a petite rump. This is actually, in my opinion, and others as well actually, the most tender part of the rump. and it's the perfect size to create little steaks from. You can roast this piece whole, tie it and roast it, or you could cut it into steaks, which is what I'll do today. I think this is the best use of this particular piece. So in this case we've got 5 perfect little steaks. I like using these for a pepper steak. Now with the rest of it, again, there's always options. There's not much trimming to do on this one, if anything, to be honest. That remaining piece of fat there you can take off or you can leave it. Because again, it's irregular because of where we've taken off the rump cap, it's probably best in this regard that we take it off. But what I'm going to do, I'll finish removing that nerve, because again, this is not serving us any advantage at all, leaving it on. Again, quite the opposite. So it needs to come off. All of this trimming, of course, will get used for burgers in this case. Then you're left there with the remainder of the roast beef. Again, you could cut this into steaks. We could roast it whole. Once we get to this piece that's got the fat on, these pieces become some of the best steaks. In my opinion, it's got the perfect amount of meat and fat. That last little piece there will go into the burgers along with the fat. And that's our roast beef.